Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 389 of Dial the Gate, the Stargate Oral History Project. I'm David Reed. Thank you for joining me in my parents' living room. We had to make a few holiday plan adjustments. They usually come to me, but I came to them this year. And I knew I was planning on finishing with Martin Gero for season 5. And then we recorded the Christmas Carol special with Tom and Jacqueline and Garwin, along with a number of other projects that are going to be releasing early next year in season 6 for Dial the Gate. But I put out a number of requests once the Stargate announcement came through for SG4, the fourth series that's coming out. And Bill Nye responded, yes, just around the time that we were finishing with Martin. So there was no way that I was going to keep this over for season 6. We were going to bring Bill in. It's the science guy, for crying out loud. I was raised with this, with this guy for this season. So this is like a coda onto our season, and I really hope that you enjoy. We only had him for about 50 minutes, but we ran the gamut of topics, all kinds of science topics, and thanks so much to everyone who submitted a question in the comments from the announcement for this episode. And it took a little bit longer for this episode to get out than I would have wished, because of spending so much time in Vancouver. But thanks so much to Bill for making this one possible. He and Neil deGrasse Tyson guest starred in season 5's Brainstorm, which was the last episode that Martin wrote, and Martin Gero wrote and actually directed for Stargate Atlantis before the end of that series. So it's special that we have him along as well, because he featured in Blindspot. He's worked with Martin since, and we touch on a little bit of all of that, and we get into a little bit of the Wraith and the nature of the freeze lighting and a few other things, in addition to answering some of your questions as well. I'm going to stop prattling along here, and I'm just going to bring in Bill Nye, the science guy who played himself in Stargate Atlantis' Brainstorm. Let's go ahead and see it. First of all, I really want to thank you for the privilege of being back with you again. It's not often that twice in your life you get a chance to meet someone who helped shape who you are as an adult in terms of how you view the world, but not only that, but how you enabled curiosity and a deeper concentration of your surroundings to be fun. You brought us, in that show that I watched all those years ago on PBS, a sense of freedom to go, yeah, being goofy is fine and all right, and just be you and be curious about your surroundings. And do you ever stop being surprised by the success of that show?
No, that is a great question. As I tell people all the time, I mean, we were messing around in a warehouse in Seattle. And the show is just, the fourth generation of people are watching it. You know, it's really surprising and wonderful. So you're right. I never stop being amazed. Yeah.
What is happening in science today that you think that everyone should be paying attention to?
Oh, well, two things. At least. Everyone's talking about artificial intelligence, artificial intelligence, artificial intelligence, the most important thing that's ever happened in the history of humankind. And it's a big deal, but I think the real ultimate effect of artificial intelligence is going to be in two areas, at least. It will not be in writing scripts automatically for automatic soap operas or whatever it is, which there may be a limited amount of that. I think it will be in designing genes for crops, for agriculture, for farm crops. With artificial intelligence, we'll be able to dial in characteristics of grains so that they are tolerant to droughts, tolerant to floods, tolerant to temperatures, tolerant to temperature swings, and so on. And the other thing I'm very excited about is fusion. So instead of knocking apart large atoms and releasing the so-called the energy of the weak atomic force, you'd be smashing together for example, protons, and overcoming the strong atomic force and releasing that heat and light the way we do in a star. So the thing about artificial intelligence, it may enable a system, a gizmo, a fusion energy reactor, to not just react to how the plasma is moving. So everybody, solid, liquid, gas, the fourth state of matter is plasma. And I don't have very much direct experience with it, but the old saying is it's like trying to handle Jell-O with chopsticks. The stuff, it just has these strange properties that are not random, but difficult to predict. But with the artificial intelligence system, perhaps we will be able to anticipate where the plasma would go and then design a magnetic field or rather a system to control a magnetic field to control it. If we had fusion energy, it would, dare I say it, change the world.
I mean, I remember growing up reading that within each of us is the potential to unlock an almost unlimited amount of power.
I mean, the amount of
we're all like little nuclear reactors. It's extraordinary how much power is locked away if we just found the correct combination to release it.
Well, we're talking about in fusion, we're talking about actual smashing of protons together. And that is in stars, that's done with a tremendous amount of gravity. On Earth, if we ever pull this off, it'll be done with a magnetic field. And this would be, and smashing stuff. So you'd have, you'd have a beam of, for example, you'd have a beam of protons that runs into a plasma of dissociated protons and electrons, and they would fuse. And then you'd contain it with a magnetic field. But getting a beam of protons, everybody sounds extraordinary and exotic, but it's not that hard. It's hydrogen gas. And you'd accelerate it with an electric grid, like a window screen all charged up. And the electron would stay on the screen and the proton keeps going. This is, if I may, an old trick, but getting fusion to work is not an old trick.
Sure. We have a lot to learn. I think the importance of good science fiction stories, so much of it is to help keep us grounded in our tech transforming world. I love Isaac Asimov's quote that good science fiction is the key for us as a species if we are to survive. If I may borrow from Bill Adama and Galactica, be worthy of survival. How critical do you think it is today for good science fiction stories like Martin Gero's upcoming show to be told?
Well, to me, it's changed my life. You know, I mean, I'm looking for a copy of. Here's one. Here's another. Hang on, it's going to be worth it.
Sure.
Here it is. And what's this clutter? This is awful. But here we are. U.S. Constitution, now available in paperback. The U.S. Constitution, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 8, Congress is to promote the progress of science and useful arts. The word science is in the Constitution. Anyway, science fiction changed my life. I watched Star Trek, the original Star Trek. I'm of a certain age. And the same people who are interested in that sort of science fiction are interested in the real science of, for example, rocketry or governance or the social interactions of people and people that literally don't look like you, people that of a different ancestry or whatever. Star Trek was inspirational in that regard. Not just with the human crew, but the Vulcan crew, and then all these other entities that you would encounter, many of whom were fluent in English. So, it's surprising. That sort of science fiction makes me very hopeful about the future. And then, in Stargate, we had climate change going on. That's the real. People are talking these days about climate change just doesn't have the traction that it did in the public eye that it did a few years ago. People are realizing that affordability is more important than climate change. Okay, it's going to catch up with us, everybody. You might be putting it off right now, but climate change is coming, whether or not you choose to fund electric vehicle chargers or not.
Speaking to that episode, Brainstorm was the first time he worked with Martin Gero.
Yeah.
Who is that man to you? And what was that episode
guys, he's just
mean to you?
Well, he's just a charming guy, and it was real acting, and I got to tie everybody's bow tie. Not the point, but it was for me, it was a thrill. It was because it was shot in Vancouver, British Columbia, and the crew is just competent. They're excellent crew, working hard all day, and I felt very taken care of, and I also felt like an important part of the team. Come prepared, be on time. Be on time, come prepared. The rest, anybody could do it. So just being included with that was fun. And Martin's direction was just excellent. He had me playing myself, and I pitched, I keep calling him David. What's the character?
David Hewlett, McKay.
McKay.
Yeah, it's okay.
Dave Hewitt is cool. He's great. He's an actor, everybody. You guys, I guess your listeners all know him.
Yes.
McKay. It's been over 10 years. So, my degrees aren't honorary. That's his line. And I felt really bad. God, I suck. And Martin allowed me to add something. It was very nice. In other words, he's supportive of me as a person as well as an actor, which was very nice.
That's the thing. When you're playing a version of yourself, I mean, in the script, he literally has an exchange. I wonder if this gal that he's with is available. That Neil, you're not available. You're married, but I am, and it's like I'm going to see if I can take her away from him. And you're playing a version of yourself. You kind of just have to let that part of yourself go. It's like there's parts of this person that I'm playing are a caricature of me. Like, I wouldn't do this in this situation. You just trust the material.
Well, yeah, plus it's Martin, in this case, it's Martin Gero's perception of me. And that's valid. No matter what I think I am, it's his or a viewer's perception of me. So that was great. I just went with it. But you do have to your point, you have to concentrate.
Right.
You can't come out and go, well, I'd never say that. You can't do that. You got to perform, man. And so since then, just not changing the subject, Martin's had me back in Blindspot. And I think it's because he was pleased enough with you can ask him. I think he was pleased enough with me in Stargate.
No, we did. He considers you a friend. I Black Feathers wrote in and said, you have a crossover line in Blindspot where your character there mentioned Rodney McKay as your real-life nemesis. Do you think that the two universes are actually one?
Yes, I do think the two universes are one. But we all know my real nemesis is Neil. I'm fooling around, you guys. That's irony. Lighten up. Yeah.
I have tried to have him on the show, and we have yet to get him. So.
Well, I'm serious, man. He is running all over the place. So.
He sure is. Yeah, for sure.
So he'll find you after a while.
I grew up with a father who, if we were heading towards somewhere where he knew that there was going to be a garbage can, and he had room in his pockets, and there was something laying on the ground in front of him, he would pick it up and put it in his pocket. And we would get to wherever we were going, and he would deposit the garbage in the can. And I do that as an adult, and even my friends give me, like, they mention it to me later. They're like, why do you do that? It was like, well, because it's the right thing to do.
You want to leave the world better than you found it.
That's it. And it's on my way, and I can clean this street up a little bit, and I get a dopamine hit. So you know what? I feel that there is so much to championing great causes, but also environmental stewardship starts with you in the simplest act. And it is a contagion that, if you demonstrate, can be shared with others.
So this gets back a little bit to the broken window idea. You know, if there are broken windows in a neighborhood, then people throw rocks at the unbroken windows and make them all broken. Whereas if they're taken care of and maintained, people are less likely to abuse the space, the building. That's a very reasonable idea. And so picking up trash is part of that. Mm-hmm. How many of us have seen the overflowing trash can at the rock concert or what have you, when there might be an unfilled trash can not far away, and this and that. Of course, in the case of trash cans, good engineering invites right use. You want the trash cans to be where you need them, and so on.
Absolutely.
Not changing the subject. No, we're talking about leaving the world better than you found it.
That's it. Oh, what do you think of the concept of freeze lighting after all these years? Is it one of those where it's like, this is one of those where I'm just going to...
So, you guys, something that is really cool, and I did talk to Martin about this many years ago. One of the way cool scientists on the Science Guy show, John Horak, had a spacecraft, was a principal investigator on spacecraft, I guess they're still flying, that were designed to measure cosmic rays. These are high energy particles and waves that come from deep space, presumed from scraping and friction of cosmic material, dust and hydrogen gas or hydrogen atoms deep in space. So this spacecraft was designed, and it's flat with detectors on it, and detectors on both sides, top and bottom. What does it look like? Let's say it looks like this. It has detectors on top and detectors on the bottom. And it goes around the Earth in so-called inertial space. In other words, the spacecraft isn't doing this as it goes around the Earth. It's just doing this. Do you follow me, everybody? Sure, Bill. Anyway, he detected sprites, cosmic rays produced in thunderstorms, the equivalent of cosmic rays produced in thunderstorms. And sprites is a meteorology word for lightning, cloud within a cloud, cloud to cloud. So they did all this meteorological research while trying to study cosmic rays. So the stuff that goes on with lightning in clouds in science fiction, I'm on board. Let's go, man. Turn it up loud.
The thing that I absolutely love about so much of our science fiction, and not talking about the fact that, Bill Shatner is holding a communicator, and one day, and couple of decades later, we can hold the exact same thing.
Ours also, our communicator also has cameras and stores. You have access to virtually all of human knowledge throughout the cosmos. Yeah, except for that.
It's ridiculous. The thing that I find extraordinary is that these writers, and I'll cite an example from Stargate, posit something about the universe. They're kind of going out on a limb, but it's possible, and it turns out to be true. In Stargate universe, the end of season 1, Destiny gets trapped in the range of a pulsar that turns every 22 minutes or whatever it was. I don't remember the exact number. And at the time, no one had seen a pulsar behave this way in space. It's like, no. This is not a thing that moves that
fast or
that slow.
That
slow. Years later, we detect a pulsar that behaves like the one in Stargate universe. And they were right. And
Well,
I'm sorry, but that's the coolest thing.
well, it's a reasonable guess. But I mean, you can bust my chops on this.
No.
But I don't think there was any astronomer 25 years ago who was saying that's absolutely impossible.
Right.
I think he or she would have said, well, we've never seen one. So I don't think anybody was said that was impossible. When you have spinning things, there's all kinds of modes. You have the fundamental spin, then you have nutation, and then you have precession. There's all kinds of stuff going on. And so it's reasonable to me that as a star or pulsar loses its energy, this magnetic field, which is developed in kind of a karate chop shape, also ends up going around pretty slowly. A feature of the sun, just our sun, is different latitudes on the sun spin at different rates, very much out of your everyday experience. Imagine if the equator was going a different speed from London. I mean, it'd be crazy. I mean, in a tangential velocity, they are going two different speeds, but in a radial velocity, they're going same speed. I mean, London and the equator are moving at the same time. But imagine they weren't. Whoa! That's what goes on in a star. So to me, a pulsar that's got a period of only 22 minutes, I don't know. It could be. So it's great. It's cool. But, a lot of science fiction doesn't work out, everybody.
It's true.
There's a lot of telepathy in science fiction. So far, not proven. There's a lot of take the other guy's wound and make empathy. Physical injury empathy. Maybe. Okay. Vampirism. Yeah. We love vampires, cannibals. We're crazy for that. So,
I guess there's some things that just stay affixed to the genre, and it's interesting that you bring that up because Harvey and Todd the Wraith wanted to know, how much of Stargate have you seen, and what do you think that the show really gets right? And conversely, what do you find yourself kind of squinting past to enjoy in the story?
I didn't watch that much Stargate, but I watched enough. I noticed everybody's running around in the Pacific Northwest. There's a lot of evergreen trees.
It's true.
And we love fangs. Who doesn't love fangs? But this idea that you go between star systems to feed, that's a lot. But what are you going to do? It's a metaphor. I was amazed or very surprised to learn that there were prayers by families who lived in what would now be Scotland or Northern England, praying that the raiders from the north would not come this month. These would be, I guess, Vikings who just, like any good parasite, thought it'd be easier to take somebody else's stuff than make stuff for yourself. So I think looking at it metaphorically, Stargate is unlimited. It's a story. These are stories about everybody. Stories in science fiction with humanoids running around are stories about humans, everybody. Don't kid yourself. These are human storytellers. And the thing that just amazes me and charms me and delights me is Martin Gero is just a master storyteller. He's just amazing. Thinks these things through. He's got this major league plan. It's just cool. I love working with that guy.
He was creating such extraordinary stuff at 26 years old.
I know. I suck. I know.
I suck by comparison.
I know. It's amazing.
Science.
And he's just, you guys, respectfully, what you see is what you get. He's just a charming guy who loves what he does. He works hard, man.
No one deserves to helm this new show more than he does.
Well, it's going to be,
and I'm not saying that
for everybody too. It's going to work out for the network, or the streaming service is going to work out great for them, too. I mean, it's going to be win-win-win. Let's go.
That's exactly right.
And I'm hopeful. I'm not just sucking up, David. I'm hopeful he'll have me on an episode or two.
I think that would only...
I'll wear all the rubber stuff you want. You want fangs? You want ears? I'll go bald cap if you think that's going to help.
You know, they're borrowing from when Star Wars came out, when the new one came out, 2015.
Now, was that the Rogue thing?
I'm talking about The Force Awakens in 2015.
You got respectfully, how many have there been? 7?
Of the main core series, that they have 9, and then you have 2 movies underneath it.
Yeah, okay. So I lose track, respectfully.
But the number of people who, like Simon Pegg, went under heavy prosthetics just to be a part of this thing. And even George Lucas will tell you that the Star Wars is not strictly speaking science fiction. It's more of a space opera. But the people who get invested in these stories and just want to contribute, to be a part of it in some way, because it meant something to them, is extraordinary.
That's great. It's inspirational.
I'm curious. Urias Tosh wanted to know, how willing would you be to have yourself demolecularized inside of a wormhole? And if you would be, what type of world would you like to discover?
So everybody had been asked a form of this different time. It would depend how well it worked. For example, I get on airplanes all the time. Solid technology, works very well, much safer than I get in cars, safer than driving. There's things I wouldn't get on. I get on roller coasters, but there's some of them I'm reticent. I think I hearken. This may seem like a digression to me. Anyway, there was this. I spent a lot of time on bicycles. So this inventor came up with a pedal, a bicycle pedal, that puts your foot below the axle. Like the pedal you're familiar with probably does this, right? Well, this was an invention where the platform was below the axle, and the claim was, as you ankle, as it's called, as you take advantage of a little more than the circle, that this would be a great advantage. Well, I looked at the thing, and it's made of plastic. It's made of carbon fiber, carbon lead. It might be called glass-filled polysulfone. That might be what it was made of. Anyway, I looked at it as an engineer or as a guy who's ridden bikes, and it just didn't look like it would work. And sure enough, a guy I know pretty well got injured pretty badly when that pedal failed. You know, your boy parts come down on the top bar, and you're on a curve, and it's sandy, and you just lose control of the bike. And so that I wouldn't do. That seemed like a digression. That I wouldn't do. If the streaming molecularizer worked okay, then I'm on board. And where would I want to go? I've said this many times. Hawaii. Hawaii's pretty good. Hawaii, they got it's beautiful beaches. They got the food is outstanding. They got cash machines. Everyone or nearly everyone speaks English, and it's a big time saver, and it's very relaxing. So that is one of my first destinations with the molecular beamerizer.
You said everyone speaks English. I remember what you said earlier in the conversation about all the aliens speaking English in Trek, and Roddenberry is on record saying that, well, what you have to understand is that within every home television set is a small universal translator.
Yeah, that's right, sure.
And
it's very well documented. Now we have smart TVs finally caught up with Star Trek technology. Furthermore, you guys, the world is changing in the coolest way. Talking about communicator, Star Trek communicator. So I'm not joking, you guys. I went to a conference. It's called the Astronautical Congress in Paris the year before this. and got in a car, in a taxi. The taxi driver was Romanian, and he spoke very good French, but once in a while he would reach for a word. I hardly speak any French. I dream of it. Oh, Martin Gero speaks French if you need to. He's good Canadian. He was brought up in Canadian high school. Anyway, the driver pointed at his phone.
Yeah.
Download this app. This is 2 years ago, you guys. Now every phone has this, but I could speak English. It would come out in French, and he could read it. And once in a while, he'd put it in Romanian, into French, into English, and we could carry on, man. The whole town was under construction for the Olympics. I was in traffic for over an hour and a half, and we had a cool conversation by phone. It was just cool because the universal translator just almost exists.
It did the same several years ago when I was rerouted from Moscow, of all places, heading back to the United States. And while I was on the ground in Moscow and in LA, I sat next to this wonderful Russian lady, and we had a conversation through my phone, and we're Facebook friends to this day. That's the thing that I love about how science fiction has influenced our technology to where we now have they're developing at full speed these wearables that allow you to connect with someone and speak, and it translates in your ear.
Well, and I think also you'll be able to see text in your glasses, focused at infinite. Now, I got to stop you on this claim for you to consider. I'm not sure in this case science fiction induced this technology to be developed.
Yeah.
In other words, this was a dream of everybody, a universal translator. If we could just communicate. However, the Star Trek flip-top communicator, Star Trek, definitely led to the early Motorola flip phone. I mean, that is going the other way. So the answer, once again, it depends.
For sure. I also think that science fiction will often illustrate ideas that mankind has in such a way as to further inspire people to push that thing forward.
From the get-go, everybody wants to fly.
Yeah.
That's everybody's dream, right, is to fly. And so wouldn't it be cool to fly to these other planets now that these other planets have been discovered? So the big deal right now, in public interest in space, it right now is not in what happened on Mars. Was there life on Mars, which utterly fascinates me? Are there living things on Europa, the moon of Jupiter, twice as much ocean water on Earth? Thing everybody's into is exoplanets. Everybody wants to know what's going on these distant worlds, which we are proving to exist. And that is, to your point, exactly what science fiction, or much of Stargate, Star Trek, Star Wars entails, is these other worlds, literally other worlds, not just other countries, other worlds. And they're real. And our tax dollars are enabling us to prove that.
Yeah, I remember growing up learning their names in elementary school.
Names of exoplanets?
I don't remember them now. There were only a couple that were discovered.
286C and stuff
like that, yeah. And today I can't keep track of all of them. There are so many that we're learning about.
No, there's tens of thousands now
that we're aware of, and it's just
extraordinary.
extraordinary.
What everybody's fascinated with would be finding or showing to exist an atmosphere that almost certainly couldn't be there without what we think of as living things. This is where everybody got all excitedly bent out of shape about phosphine gas in the atmosphere of Venus and what seemed to be organic molecules, carbon-bearing molecules in distant worlds, 30 light years away, where this crazy telescope can detect the atmosphere just above the surface of the planet as it passes between us and the star. And everybody, you got to have it It's got to work out dumb luckily enough that it's in the plane that we could see it. If the planet's going around the star like this, getting that occultation and the transit is just much, much less likely. There's other tricks I'm sure these guys and gals have, but the first one is to see it go between us and the star.
Bill, how true is the statement, where there's water, there's life?
Well, it seems to be everywhere we go on Earth, that seems to be the case. So everybody, let's just talk about what's really happening out there in the actual world. So some of the viewers may remember ALH 001, this pattern of looked like not even miniature, microscopic beads in a rock found in Antarctica, 1994. It must have been. If I got that wrong, I'm sorry. I'm talking too fast. All right. I should be fluent in this. When you're walking around on the ice in Antarctica and you find a string of rocks, the only way they got there is from space. There's nobody running around Antarctica throwing rocks on the ice waiting for somebody to come along. So this pattern in this rock revealed with a microscope or scanning electron microscope looked like it might have been poop of an ancient microbe. Everybody freaked out, totally running in circles, screaming. And the Mars program at NASA got a huge boost from the public interest in this pattern, in this rock. Well, everybody's decided later, almost certainly not a living thing. It's something probably from a nearby magnetic field that enabled or induced these iron-bearing atoms to line up, molecules to line up, and it's enchanting. Well, this business of the leopard spots found in a rock by scientists on Earth using the Perseverance rover, these leopard spots resemble in every way the spots we find of fossilized microbes here on Earth. And if I were king of the forest, I would be going crazy over this. I am going crazy over this, but I'm not running the show at NASA or ESA or JAXA, Japanese Aerospace, European Space. But it is to be hoped that in the coming months, everyone will be reminded of the potential significance of this. If we found life on another world, it would change this one. It would change the way everybody here feels about being a living thing in the cosmos.
It doesn't have to be sentient. It just has to be.
Not yet. Yeah.
Not
and
yet.
What about my old boss? Was he sentient? Am I right? Okay. So everyone, keep in mind the hypothesis what's back of all this, and we'll get back to Stargate. But Mars is smaller than Earth. It cooled off faster than the Earth because it has more surface area for the mass. And it got an ocean 1 billion years before Earth did. It got an atmosphere 1 billion years before Earth did. In the same way, ALH 001, this meteorite found on the Antarctic ice, got here, Mars is hit with impactors all the time. And so stuff gets knocked into space, and you can go online, you guys, and buy a Mars rock because they, as I like to say, it's in space, there's no sound. And they land here on Earth. But those rocks have survived getting smashed by a meteorite on Mars, a Marsiorite on Mars, knocked into space, made it through the icy blackness of space and landed here on Earth, burning up in the atmosphere, ablating whatever's going on, and what's left of it ends up on the ice in Antarctica. By the way, most of the Mars rocks that fall here fall in the ocean. You never see them.
Yeah.
3/4 of the world's covered, 71% is covered with water, all right, salt water. So the hypothesis is that life started on Mars got knocked into space, and you and I are descendants of Martians. This is an extraordinary hypothesis. And these rocks are sitting on Mars. They've been collected by diligent engineers and scientists using this extraordinary vehicle, the Perseverance rover. And there is no plan right now to bring them back to Earth. There is no plan. And what are you doing? Your tax dollars not at work. They're in happy little tubes, happy little sample tubes on Mars. And the sample tubes are on my desk at the Planetary Society. How can there not be one on my desk? Anyway, I'm quite troubled. All that is.
We'll get a photo.
Well, and you can buy plastic replicas online. They're this big, and the tubes are, and you can imagine how it would change the world if we brought these things back. And there's no plan. And the current administration, you were talking about science in our society, and so we're this anti-science movement, this distrust of authority, this anti-intellectualism. It will not last. That's not how the United States got to where we are in the world. And the pendulum will swing. I mean, the faster, the better. Everybody, I'm not digressing. We're talking about life on another world. We're talking about evolution. We're talking about how you and I all got here. While living things like us were coming along, living things that take advantage of us, like the
Wraith.
Yes, like the Wraith, come to be parasitic on humans. So germs and parasites are parasitic on living things like you and me. I went to elementary school with a guy who has polio. You do not want polio. I do not have polio because I got vaccinated against it. This anti-vax movement, there's always been vax-hesitant people. Always been people afraid of needles. I got it. But vaccines work. Science, the discoveries scientists have made about living things are true. And so I digress only a little bit. It's science fiction that leads to all this. And how many science fiction stories are there involving infections? Countless. Did you enjoy Hail Mary?
I've not read it yet.
Read it.
Yeah,
Have
I've not
you read it? Anyway, infections are a big science fiction theme. And when you are a parasite, you not only carry infection, but you're subject to countermeasures, immune systems, and so on. All that stuff of science fiction. Back to you.
A friend of the show, Bob Picardo, works with you at the Planetary Society. Any quick updates from the Planetary Society?
Well, just that we're a new 5-year framework. It's not a strategic plan, it's a framework. No. So there's a few big events coming up. Now, understand, everybody, Bob Picardo was here for the Planetary Society board meeting. He stayed at my house. He left yesterday morning. He's a dear friend. He was the officiant at my wedding. I'm not objective about it. I love that guy. So in the next 5 years are big things. There's going to be more missions, spacecraft launched to remote destinations. The Nancy Grace Roman telescope will be launched, built with kind of a surplus military mirror, brought in on budget, on time, cheaper than the presumed cost. It's ready to fly. Do you know about Apophis?
Oh, I'm very aware of Apophis. Yeah, he was our big bad guy, and this asteroid appears all over this.
Apophis, everyone, is an asteroid that will miss the Earth, named for the Egyptian god of, depending on the translation, the Egyptian god of anxiety, of chaos. And so it'll be 2029, and there's finally a consortium of rocket companies and universities and NASA to catch up with the thing using essentially surplus spacecraft that, as I like to say, are sitting in Colorado clean room, not gathering dust. Anyway, there'll be another eclipse in Spain, or very well, a very cool place to watch it will be in Spain. All these astronomical events and space exploration events are coming up, and the Planetary Society is going to be very involved in all that. It's going to be huge. It's going to be huge. We're hiring 2 more people to get more done. If for some reason those of you listening and watching to this podcast are not members of the Planetary Society, I mean, first of all, that's just weird. But check us out at planetary.org. And David, thank you for mentioning it. Thank you for letting me go on about it.
Bill, thank you for coming on. Science fiction is a metaphor. Well, it and metaphor, and they permit us to consider alternate points of view, to open our hearts, and to just be curious with one another.
Storytelling. And it's an appreciation for how much human ingenuity or tool making or our tendency to try to understand the world around us manifests itself with our imagination. And I'll claim our ancestors who were not curious, who did not wonder about the worlds around them, are not actually our ancestors. They got outcompeted by our ancestors who were curious, who did innovate, who did look for new ideas, and did dream in a science fiction fashion. And just one more thing. Is it time to go?
I have as much time as you will give me. I just wanted to be respectful of you.
Oh, well, thanks. But something I had not really thought much about until... Do you know Brannon Braga?
I love Brannon Braga's work.
Yeah, anyway, he remarked one time, any story, and they're almost always science fiction stories, any story that's about time travel is ultimately about our race with death. That it's that whole, is there a do-over? Could you go into the past and change it so you didn't exist? And all these wonderful questions. What is the nature of time? And these are just cool questions that science fiction addresses. Even Portrait of Dorian Gray, which some would say is great literature, this and that, is in some sense a science fiction story. And I remember being in English class, and this gal remarked that Kurt Vonnegut, well, he uses science fiction as a device. I mean, it's not really science fiction. What are you talking? What do you mean? Yes, it's a device. Yes, for storytelling about humans. Yes, come on. But I admit some science fiction is not as product of as much deep thought as other science fiction. But
you have to open your door to all kinds of people to have a place to play. So some of us, it's like, this one wasn't really for me as much, but this one over here, this one, Annihilation, Arrival, those are for me.
By the way, and we'll close with this, I guess, something Martin Gero says to the cast. He says, well, come on, let's all, I'm so glad you guys, we have a chance to play together.
Yeah.
Like he's, as hard as he works and as serious as he takes the whole thing, at some level, it's play for him. It's fun for him. And he brings that to all of us on the cast. It was a great thing to be included in Stargate, and I hope that it comes around.
Thank you for continuing to inspire. And like on Stargate, you weren't curing cancer, but they were creating stories for the people who are curing cancer.
Oh, yeah.
And there's a whole process there that feeds back into itself.
You guys...
You have to create the next series of Dreamers.
When the next series of Dreamers comes around, gets jobs and stuff, it's very reasonable that this messenger RNA technology will be applied. I was corresponding with a guy. I remember he and I used to shoot rockets together. Now he's one of these MD, PhD people, overachieving. This messenger RNA may be used to cure cancer. And it's not pie in the sky. It's where you use your own immune system to reprogram your immune system so it doesn't produce cancer cells. It's really an extraordinary idea.
Bill, thank you.
Thank you, David. Let's change the world.
My tremendous thanks to Bill Nye for making this episode possible. I said it before, and I will continue to say it. Science fiction is our dream phase. I think that Brandon Braga said that, or someone very similar to. I think it was Brandon who brought that up at some point, where it allows us to share ideas with one another in allegory and metaphor in a way that makes us less guarded and protected. And it's the real reason why it's my favorite vehicle for storytelling and for sharing ideas, because we're not like, I must think this way because I am over here. And I must, so yeah, we aren't combative with each other as we normally would be. We certainly have our priors in terms of our beliefs and everything else, but they're not so sacred to us. They enable us to think and enjoy. And, as Brad and Jonathan and Rob and all the other, Martin would tell you, chiefly first, it's to entertain. They're not creating these things to make us think per se. So a lot of what we draw from it is stuff that we internalize ourselves. But you take a look at that episode, like Brad writes The Other Side, that's laced with a delicious metaphor. And Brainstorm was an episode that certainly, by the end of it, Rodney says himself, we've all got to do our part. That was the mandate for that episode. I think NBC Universal, the parent company of Sci-Fi Channel, that episode was released during a week where they were doing a block of entertainment that spoke to ecological stewardship. And that was the kernel for why that episode exists. But man, Bill Nye and Neil deGrasse Tyson, bringing those guys in, that was just an extraordinary coup. And it was cool, as Bill would say. Thanks again to him for making this episode possible. Thanks so much to my moderators over this past season. I don't have my script in front of me, guys. So there's a number of they're like 10 strong now. Thank you all so much for making this season possible. My producers, you guys have done a tremendous amount of work to pull this off. My webmaster, Frederick Marcoux at Concepts Web. My graphics designer, Bryce, and Eagle SG, Matt Wilson. This has been a tremendous honor to be able to carry this show as long as I have, and we've got a lot more to do now that SG4 is going to be on the horizon the next couple of years here. So there's going to be a lot of build up to this and anticipation. And Bill is, I think, one of the early folks that we've had on to reignite this interest in Stargate in the online fandom, because there's going to be a lot more brand new Stargate fans who are going to find the show they're already starting. I've been getting comments from people who, hey, I just heard about this thing. I'm going and watching it and I love it. So let's expand that tent, and not just in the English speaking world. Let's expand it globally, because there's going to be a lot of fun engagement that's going to come because of it. Thanks again to Bill Nye, and thank you to my entire team for making our episodes possible. Ian Bernardo, thank you, my software developer. You guys are all doing tremendous work. My name is David Reed Fidal the Gate. Thanks for joining us for Season 5, and I'll see you on the other side.